Coming up, the MC women's basketball team began the season with a sea of new faces and a ton of lofty expectations. We'll take a look at their roller coaster regular season and also bring you highlights from their exciting postseason run. This year's MC men's basketball team was determined to rebound from the disappointments of last year. What we ended up with was a tale of two seasons. We'll take a look at how this team responded when their season was on the brink. Spring is finally here, so it's time for baseball, softball, and track and field. We'll have a preview of all three teams as they each try to top what they accomplished last year. And finally, we'll pay tribute to one of the all-time greats in the history of Montgomery College athletics. All this and more on the latest edition of the Raptor Report, starting now. Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Raptor Report. I'm Michael Brown. Well, spring is finally here, which means it's time for baseball, softball, and track and field at MC. And we'll have a spring sports preview coming up later in the show. But we're going to get things started with a look back at the MC basketball season. It was full of ups and downs and twists and turns from the very first jump ball of the year. It was simultaneously dramatic, challenging, exhilarating, and frustrating. It was a season of streaks by both MC teams. So let's get started with our look back at the season that was, and we'll tip things off with women's basketball. Head coach Tarlouh Gasque began her 8th season with Montgomery College, coming off a 2012-13 season that saw her team finish 5th in the nation after qualifying for nationals for the second straight season. But that was last year. This year's team looked a whole lot different. 12 new additions to be exact. And they were joined by just 3 returners, Megan Tillman, Angelica Ciccone, and Ashley Latter. And to add to the degree of difficulty, Coach G, as is her custom, designed a killer early season schedule full of tough road games and higher division opponents. Now, she's done this every year she's run the program in hopes of toughening up her team early and also to send the message that NJCAA basketball is no walk in the park. So they began the season on the road in a tough tournament in Boston, and they took 2 of 3, including a win over Roxbury, who they'd lost to in the national championship tournament last year. But then their inexperience seemed to catch up to them as they played just .500 ball over the next 6 games. But that stretch did include a big win over D2 Passaic out of New Jersey and a convincing win over Nova on a big night at MC. The night the brand new MC Athletics mascot, the Raptor, was revealed. That victory began a Raptors run of 7 wins over their next 9 games, including tough road wins over Frederick and Garrett and an 85-58 thrashing of Howard. We talked with Coach G after that win, and she was reasonably happy, but far from satisfied.
One of the things I stressed to the ladies today that is we have to play MC ball. That was the theme today. Don't play to the other team's level. And I felt that we were a much better team and we needed to show it. So when we went in the second half, they knew I wasn't very happy with what was going on. They needed to execute better, and I think that's what we saw. They came in and started executing our plays the way they were supposed to.
So as the new year arrived, Coach G's young Raptors were 11-6 and had shown signs of playing the type of ball she expects. She was encouraged by the strong contributions from sophomore co-captains Ciccone and Tillman. And a core group of first-year young players were also starting to make their presence felt. Jabria Smith gave the Raptors speed, defense, and scoring. Nicole Cunningham was a low-post matchup headache and contributed consistent double-doubles. Kiana Daly was an outside threat, and super sub Kiera McEllery was giving them valuable defense and rebounding. But at the same time, Coach G was concerned about the team's inconsistency and on-court leadership. And once the calendar turned to 2014, those concerns magnified as the team hit a rough patch. They started off the year with 3 ugly losses, including an upset loss to Hagerstown and a thorough beating from Chesapeake. So Coach G does what she always does in those situations. She took a step back. She had team meetings and she made some changes. The biggest move was handing the point guard duties to Kiana Daly, thus relieving Jabria Smith of the pressure of basketball's toughest position. Now, Smith still ran the offense for generous amounts of time, but the psychological effect of not actually being called point guard seemed to lift her game, and the rest of the team seemed to shake off the doldrums at the same time. After the loss to Chesapeake, the Raptors ripped off 7 straight wins, including blowouts of Dundalk and Anne Arundel, and a big overtime win over D1 Baltimore on the road. During the streak, Saccone and Tillman upped their games and were turning in double-doubles night after night. Cunningham seemed to be getting stronger and, importantly, was avoiding foul trouble. Smith was consistently filling up the stat sheet, and Daly was starting to become more consistent with the three. However, a knee injury to McEllery was the one ominous note heading into the postseason. The team felt her absence on the floor, and it also forced Coach G to play Cunningham more minutes than she would have liked. But at the same time, Amy Hart, who had not played much in the early part of the season, picked up more playing time and started making valuable contributions to help ease the loss of McEllery. Heading into the Maryland JUCO tournament, the Raptors were 17-9 and feeling much better about themselves. And in the first round, they met Anne Arundel again and demolished them 117-48 as 6 players went for double figures. Angelica Saccone led the way with a career-high 38 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. Daly and Tillman each had 19, and Jabria Smith was stellar with 10 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, and 4 steals. In round 2 of the Maryland JUCO, they ran into a red-hot D1 Baltimore City team bent on revenge. And the Raptors fell behind early, never caught up, and they fell 79-50. But keep in mind that Maryland JUCO is D1, 2, and 3. So a loss there, while tough to swallow, did not derail their dreams of returning to the D3 National Championships. That was all there for them if they could take the Region 20 tournament and then the District G title. The Raptors were the #1 seed entering the Region 20 tournament and were seeded into the finals. They took on longtime bitter rival Prince George's Community College, who had knocked off Westmoreland in round 1. During the regular season, the Raptors had knocked off the Owls by 4 in a tough road game. So here they were again, at PG, in front of a hostile crowd, taking on a fired-up Owls team. And the Owls came out hot, hitting threes and running the floor with abandon. The Raptors had no answer for PG point guard Tashiana Hill. She beat them down the floor regularly and torched them from 3. And it looked bleak for MC when Cunningham picked up 2 quick fouls and was on the bench for all but 5 minutes of the half. At the break, PG was up by 15, 47-32. But whatever Coach G said at the half seemed to light a fire into the Raptors as they came out from the break looking like a different team. The defense ignited the offense as their press forced turnover after turnover, which led to fast break hoops. The Raptors also took better care of the ball, and suddenly Hill had a hand in her face every time she shot the 3 ball. In no time, they cut into the Owls' lead and then finally caught them and then took a brief lead. From then on, it was a back-and-forth nail-biter. The teams traded the lead until Jabria Smith, Nicole Cunningham, and Angelica Saccone took control in the last 5 minutes of the game to seal the comeback and give the Raptors their 3rd straight Region 20 title.
At halftime was like, okay, it's 15 points, it's not insurmountable. We're a better team. We need to play like it. We need to settle down, make good passes, play good defense, because defense always wins championships. That's why I keep telling them. The team that plays the best defense usually wins. So if you do that, we're fine.
Second half, I bring all that I had because I did not want to lose this game. We did not want to lose this game. We're going to Georgia.
After that rousing comeback win, the next step toward their ultimate goal was the District G title game on the road against West Georgia Technical College. the number 10 team in the NJCAA national rankings. MC got off to a solid start, frustrating the up-tempo Golden Knights by forcing a half-court game and holding a lead until late in the half. But when Jabria Smith picked up her third foul and had to take a seat, West Georgia took advantage to lead by 5 at the half. The second half was all West Georgia. They forced the Raptors into a slew of turnovers, which led to fast break baskets as they built an insurmountable lead. Not even a dominating game from Nicole Cunningham could stem the tide, and when Jabria Smith went down with an ankle injury, the Raptors were out of answers. And their season came to a crashing halt, 87-63. That loss was tough to take, but when you look at the season with a little perspective, perhaps expectations were a little unrealistic to begin with. The team had just 3 returners from last year's nationals team, and they added 12 new players. That's a lot of new players to mold into a cohesive team. And I think that goes a long way towards explaining the streaky nature of the season. But what should not be lost in the team's disappointment at not reaching their goal is that this team was 19-11. They won their 3rd straight Region 20 championship. They were 9-4 in the tough Maryland JUCO Conference, and they took home several postseason honors. Jabria Smith and Nicole Cunningham made the All-Region 20 first team. Angelica Ciccone was also named Region 20 Tournament MVP. And Smith also made second-team All-Maryland JUCO, while Cunningham and Ciccone honorable mention. So a fine year to be sure, and if all the freshmen on this year's team return next season, well, look out. And stick with us because we'll be right back with a live in-studio conversation with Raptors head coach Tarlouh Gasque. You're watching the Raptor Report. Welcome back, and it's my pleasure to welcome in Tarlouh Gasque, the head coach of the MC women's basketball team. Tarlouh, thanks so much for stopping by.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Tarlouh, we just recapped your season for the audience, and knowing you as I do, and of course we've talked, you were somewhat disappointed at the way the season turned out. I know it didn't quite reach the hopes and dreams that you had, but now that you've had a week or so to sit back and reflect and look at things, what are some of the conclusions that you come to from this season?
Well, I think this season, let's say, is one where we learned a lot of lessons. We started out as a very young team. Out of the 15 players we started with, 11 were freshmen. And then one of the sophomores was actually a new player transferring from school. So it kind of lent itself to some lessons. I think one of the big keys for us there was we didn't have the kind of leadership that we've had in the past years. Not that they didn't try. The captains tried, but I think sometimes they have to learn what leadership is. It's not just taking everybody through the drills. There's certain things you have to do on the court. And I just think that was lacking. So as a result, you got, when you want a leader should be an extension of the coach. Your captain should be an extension of the coach on the court. They should be able to rally people together, kind of get them to do stuff. And we just didn't have that. And when you got young players that are playing at a faster pace, concerned about their game, they don't have anybody on the court to focus them, then that's an issue. I mean, one of the things that the coaching staff that we're going to take from this, we're going to learn some lessons also, is we need to figure out strategies, ways to figure out who the true leaders are on the team, who on the team they'll rally around. We'll do that through different drills and different things just to see what happens. Also teaching them what a leader is. They need to know what is expected and what we expect a leader to do so that we don't run into the same situation with a bunch of talented players, but really nobody understanding what they need to do on the court.
Well, it was really an odd season. Mm-hmm. It was as we talked about in the story we did earlier, it was a season of streaks, up for a while, down for a while, up for a while. What do you attribute that to, do you think? The youth again?
Well, it's the youth, and then when you think about it, a lot of these players that we recruited, especially those that were doing a lot of the playing, came from teams where they were the go-to player. Then they got on a team where they had to play with other players, and I don't think they really, and I found out over time, I didn't know about shoot or give it to this person because, they could shoot too. And, so there was the indecision, and some of that you saw in the turnovers because instead of shooting the ball, they would try to pass it when really it wasn't a good pass because they had to get used to playing with other players that were just as good, if not better than they were. In addition, you had players who I think then started to doubt what they could do because they were all of a sudden in an environment where they weren't the best player. So, okay, maybe she can do it better. So we ran into a lot of that, and I think as the season went on and they started learning more and more about one another, then it got better. So, we that's why we started taking that,
Oh, you had that 7-game winning streak there.
Because all of a sudden it's like, we can do it. We can play as a team. Where everybody's expected to do certain things. They understood what their role was more and started not doubting themselves as much. And I think so we ended up seeing, with some role changes, we ended up seeing a better end to the season.
Absolutely, much more consistent.
Yes.
And, like we said, you're disappointed, yeah, but you're 19-11.
Right.
You won your third straight Region 20.
Right.
You came within one game of national, so it's not a hang your head season.
No, not at all. I mean, we're even third in a conference where we play mostly Division I and Division II teams.
Absolutely.
So I really am not hanging my head. I think I've learned a lot. And it's interesting. We have the meetings with the students afterwards, and so many of them came in there, Coach, we're sorry. We should have done this and so forth. And the plus I have is I got them to say, okay, so next year you know what you need to do. So next year is unfinished business. So at least I got these players, a lot of players returning. So I'm, while I was disappointed, hey, it's not, it could be a whole lot worse.
Well, that's good. And already I can see you formulating a strategy for next year, unfinished business with a bunch of players, hopefully a bunch of players coming back. Is it looking good for that?
Actually, yeah. What we do at the end of the season, we have closeout meetings with the student athletes. So we bring each one of them in, whether they're continuing or graduating or moving on. We had a few of the freshmen that actually were second-year players at Montgomery College, so they're graduating and moving on. But we talked to them to get their feedback on how the season went. What are the things that they think that we need to work on academically and on the court? And based on those meetings, I know for sure I'm going to have 8 players returning, 4 of them starters, and potentially getting Deja back from a couple of years ago, who is definitely a starter.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, I'm looking forward to next season because they know what I need, they know what I want, they understand the program, they know what's expected of them. A lot of them are going to be around here in summer school over the summer because they're trying to make sure they graduate, which is one of my goals for the team. I want them to graduate after 2 years with the AA. So it should be nice.
All right, in the short amount of time we have left, now you talked about next season, but there's really no off season for you. No, I know that.
Definitely not. Definitely.
You're into the recruiting mode now.
Definitely.
Tell us some of the things that you do to bring players to MC.
Well, I've already been out there. Went to the Maryland State Tournament, the high school state tournament. Went to the DC All-Star Tournament. Got to watch a lot of players. I look at those players who either didn't qualify, or those who want to stay closer to home for varying reasons, or even the cost of college, because if you're not getting a full scholarship somewhere, colleges now cost, even the Division III costs $50,000 a year to go to, compared to about $5,000 at Montgomery College. So I pretty much talk to those students, talk to their parents, get them in here, get them to see the school, get them to talk about the program, and that's how we kind of get them to select Montgomery College and come here. And at this point, I'm looking at, there are 3 I'm pretty sure are coming that are going to have a huge impact on the program.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, thanks so much for coming by. Congratulations on a really fine year. There are a lot of teams that would trade the year they had for what you guys had. So
thank you.
It's great working with you as always, and good luck with the recruiting.
Thank you.
And stick with us because we'll be right back with a look at the season turned in by MC's men's basketball team. You're watching the Raptor Report. Welcome back. Turning now to Raptors men's basketball, their season was really a tale of two seasons. The first half of the year, head coach James Bryson's team just could not seem to play with any sort of consistency. They opened with two tough losses on the road, then bounced right back with two convincing wins, including a 105-96 win over D2 Passaic, when Andre Gaines and D'Angelo Vaughn each went for 24, and Tim Christian added 20. They then went on a win-one, lose-one trend over the next 10 games. A strong win over Howard, who was in first place in Maryland JUCO when MC beat them 77-63 behind 22 from Gaines and 15 from Christian, was followed by frustrating losses like the 91-78 loss to Southern Maryland. Now, in truth, some of this inconsistency could be laid at the feet of injuries and inexperience. Tim Christian, one of the stars of last year's team, broke both wrists in preseason, and it took him several games to round into form. And the team had just two returning players, Christian and Andre Gaines. Now, granted, they're a great starting point, but still, Coach Bryson had a lot of new players to add to the mix. So as January rolled around, the Raptors were under 500. But when Hagerstown came to Rockville on January 8th, the Raptors looked at this game as one that could get them back on track. And in a way it did, though you wouldn't have known it at the time. The first half was a back-and-forth affair with neither team taking control, and at the break, the Raptors were down by 3. But they roared out of the locker room on fire to start the second half, hitting from all over the court, running their break, and all of a sudden, they were up by double digits and had the Hawks on the ropes. But they took their foot off the gas too early, and Hagerstown clawed their way back into it, raining threes and getting many second-chance opportunities. The Raptors' lead had shrunk to 1 with just seconds left when Hagerstown rebounded a missed Raptors free throw and set up an inbounds play. And with time running out, Hagerstown's Victor Blakey Jr. hit a desperation runner from 25 feet at the buzzer to send the Raptors to a crushing 92-90 loss. The devastating defeat rocked the team, and frankly, I wondered whether they would just fold up at that point. But that loss, as tough a one as a team can endure, seemed to galvanize the Raptors. Just 3 days later, they came back to whip D2 Chesapeake 84-74 behind 24 points from both Christian and D'Angelo Vaughn. And that win touched off their best run of the season as they took 8 of the next 9, including an 83-66 win over D2 Dundalk, where Vaughn lit up the gym with 27 points and 8 assists. Christian added 18, and Sam Igioma had a double-double with 13 and 11. So heading into the Maryland JUCO tournament, the Raptors were playing their best ball of the season, and more importantly, their most consistent ball. That continued in the Maryland JUCO first round when they knocked off Chesapeake handily, 85-63. As Vaughn continued his torrid run with 23 points, Zach Curran added 18, and Jordan McCants came off the bench to chip in 15. Their Maryland JUCO run came to a halt in the second round when Baltimore City edged them 82-76. But the big prize, the Region 20 championship, was still theirs for the taking. In round 1, the 4-seeded Raptors took on 5th seed Penn Highlands. Both teams started slowly, and it was a sloppy first half until about 5 minutes to go when MC went on a spurt to grab a 13-point lead at the break. The second half was all MC as their defense shut down Penn, and Andre Gaines controlled both ends of the floor for a 100-77 win. Gaines registered a 22 and 14 double-double. Christian also had 22. Vaughn 20, and Igioma contributed yet another double-double with 16 and 12. That sent the Raptors to the semis, where they took on number 1 seed Anne Arundel, who the Raptors had knocked off during the regular season. The first half was all Andre Gaines, as he repeatedly got open on the baseline. But the Pioneers stayed close by spreading the offensive wealth around, and after they went on a brief run near the end of the half, they took a 5-point lead into the break. The Pioneers continued their surge in the second half, showing great ball movement and scoring balance to build on their lead. And most importantly, they adjusted their defense to take away the baseline from Gaines. Now, MC hung tough and they kept cutting into the lead, but each MC surge was answered by the Pioneers. And they took the game and knocked the Raptors out of the tournament 90-73. The loss to Anne Arundel in the Region 20 semis ended the season for the Raptors. Naturally, they were disappointed. But you know, I think this team has a lot to be proud of. The way these guys responded to that devastating Hagerstown loss spoke volumes about their character. They learned from it. They played smarter ball, and they played their guts out to salvage the season. They were 7-9 and could have tossed in the towel after that Hagerstown loss, but instead they pulled it together. And despite a very short bench, won 10 of their last 13 to finish 17-12. And the players received several well-deserved postseason honors. Tim Christian and D'Angelo Vaughn made the All-Region 20 first team. Christian was also named to the All-Maryland JUCO second team, and Andre Gaines, honorable mention. And don't go away, because up next we'll be sitting down with MC Athletic Director Derek Carter. You're watching the Raptor Report. Welcome back, and it's my pleasure to welcome in Derek Carter, Montgomery College's Athletic Director. Derek, thanks so much for joining me today.
I'm glad to be here. You know, I always enjoy spending time with you.
Well, you know, we've been talking all show long about the success on the court, on the field for MC teams, but I know one of the things that you wanted to talk about today was the academic side, because none of this can happen unless they do it first in the classroom. So how are things going on the academic side for the teams?
Things are going well. We're pleased with the progress all of our students are making with academics. We've committed early in the fall to really try to educate all of our students on exactly what our expectations are academically, and then to provide the appropriate resources so that they can be successful. We've implemented our study hall programs for our students to just make sure that they're focusing on the books throughout the week. We have processes in place to make sure that they meet with academic counselors twice a week. And then we're doing a pretty good job of assessing data to make sure that we're doing the right things, and we'll be evaluating to make sure that all of our efforts to build a well-rounded student academically are working in the direction that we want them to.
Well, it's got to, because if they don't do it in the classroom, they're never going to get out on the court.
No question, no question. And that's why they're here, is to be student athletes. And we have to keep that in mind at all times and do our part, not only to ensure the successes that we've had within the particular sports, but we owe it to each student to be sure that we're giving them what we can to just give them that final nudge to be successful students.
And, you know, they got to have the grades if they're going to go on to a four-year school.
Absolutely. Our students come for a variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, most want to transfer to a four-year institution, and we owe it to them, like I said, to make sure that they're guided the proper way and that they put the energy into the books that are needed.
Well, let's move on to one of your other priorities, which is community involvement and engagement by our teams. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in that area.
Well, again, when we meet with the students at the beginning of the year and the coaches, we talk about our commitment to be active in the community and active in engaging the community and to understanding what we're about. So we've kind of challenged the teams each year to have at least one community project that you have as a team. And we've done great. We started off with our fall sports. Our soccer team really kicked off the year with an outstanding cooperative project with Team Impact, and we adopted our young friend Andrew Christensen, and our volleyball team launched the Dig Pink program, in which brought the awareness to breast cancer. Women's basketball continued during the winter with outstanding outreach in a couple of churches. Our baseball team, as you well know, has been involved with some projects with Army veterans and veterans of war. So everyone understands the commitment. Our soccer teams have been involved with youth soccer programs, just reaching out, being mentors, and giving back to the community in a variety of ways.
I think it's a great initiative, and I'm really glad that you got that kicked off. I think it's invaluable for these kids.
It is, it is. Again, we're sending the message that we're developing the well-rounded student athlete, academically, athletically, and then socially.
Well, let's shift gears in the little bit of time we have left and talk about fundraising. I know this is another new initiative that you are kicking off. Tell us what you have in mind and what some of your plans are.
Yeah, we're in the early stages of trying to say that we're not always going to be dependent on the college giving us resources, financial resources, that we can get out and engage the community a little bit. Certainly we have to partner with our outstanding colleagues in institutional advancement to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing as it relates to fundraising. But we want to get out into the community, offer some opportunities for corporate sponsorships, more alumni giving. We really want to target our former athletes and bring them back into the fold of kind of giving back to Montgomery College. So we're going to be strategic in how we go about it and partner with our internal colleagues, but it's just we have to make sure that we reach out to the community for external funding support.
Real quickly, a follow-up. Would this include, like at the Rockville Gym, for example, there is zero advertising. Is this part of that, or am I off on a different tangent?
No, you're on track simply because what you've done, you've recognized that there are opportunities, and this is what we want people to know, that there are opportunities to advertise your business, to advertise, to take advantage of opportunities. And what you're doing is you're recognizing the space is there, our website is there. We have the vehicles to be able to partner with corporate sponsors to make it win-win for both of us.
After all, we are one of the largest institutions in Montgomery County when you count in students, faculty, staff, family, parents, all that.
No question about it, and particularly that we are the one college model that we certainly need to take advantage of, building a community base and allowing them to come and recognize their businesses and advertise their businesses within the college. And again, it should be win-win for everyone.
Well, Derek, thanks so much. And that's, we covered a lot of topics in a short amount of time, but as always, I really appreciate you coming back in and joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And stick with us, because up next we'll have a preview of MC Spring Sports. You're watching the Raptor Report. Welcome back. After the tough winter we've all endured, it looks like we might finally actually have a spring around here. So that means it's time to take the games outside. MC competes in NJCAA baseball, softball, and track and field in the spring. And with their seasons just getting underway, let's take a look at what's ahead for each team. MC Baseball is one of the most successful athletic programs in the history of Montgomery College. But this year's edition has a tough act to follow. Last year's team set a school record for most wins in a season, 40, won their 7th Region 20 title in the last 8 years, and returned to the NJCAA World Series in Texas. They placed 2 players on the NJCAA All-American team, Jake Taylor and Greg Turlick, and Taylor also won a Rawlings Gold Glove Award. In addition, they had 4 players named to the All-Region 20 team. And to add to the difficulty, the team returns just 6 players from last year's squad. But they were also ranked number 8 nationally in the NJCAA preseason poll. I talked with head coach Rasher about this year's team.
We're very young, but there's a lot of talent. We're not going to hit the ball out of the park as much. You know, when you lose Travis Smith and Taylor and Turlick, you know, that's a big loss in run production. But these guys can hit and they can field. They're excellent on defense, and I'm looking forward to it. I think these guys are going to start their own path and be a pretty good team.
Coach Rasher has always believed that pitching and defense are the keys to winning. Sounds like the defense will be fine, but what about the arms?
We're going to be young, but we've got a number of very capable pitchers that are going to have to grow up on the mound. They're going to have to get out and do it and learn, and that's why we play 50 games. So hopefully a couple guys step to the front and turn into some pretty good pitchers by the end of the year.
And despite the team's incredible run of success, Rasher is well aware that the competition is nipping at their heels.
You saw it last year. We need to focus. We need to get better as a team. I think that PG Community College is going to give us everything we want this year. In Westmoreland, we always play good games with them. So, we just got to keep improving as a team. And then when we get to May 10th, things will take care of themselves.
That May 10th date Coach Rasher is referring to is when the Region 20 tournament begins, and the winner heads back to the NJCAA World Series in Texas. Turning to softball, last season, new head coach Mike Smigocki completely revitalized the program. The year before he took over, the record was 4-23. Last year, his first, they were 18-14 and came within one run of advancing to the NJCAA Softball Nationals. Star pitcher Julie Hance was named an All-American. 3 players made the All-Region 21st team and 2 made All-Maryland JUCO. So quite a turnaround, but as we know, it's tough at the 2-year college level. One year can be totally different from the next. And actually, as I found out when I talked to Coach Smigocki the other day, your team can actually change from fall to spring semester. Now, his team began workouts in the fall, and he felt very good about where they stood when they took a break for final exams.
I was probably the most excited I've ever been, and if you remember from last year how excited I was, we had a team that really could compete at a national level here. We had top-notch pitching. We had some very, very strong players coming in, a number of them all Gazette players from last year.
But as I said, things can change quickly. When the spring semester began, Smigocki learned that 2 of his top recruits were leaving the team and MC when they received scholarship offers to play at 4-year schools. And then 4 more decided not to play so they could concentrate on academics. So all of a sudden, a team that looked like a possible national contender had some serious holes to fill. But the always upbeat Smigocki remains optimistic.
I think they're going to compete very hard. We're short pitching this year, and softball pitching is your number one factor. Hitting wise, I'll put the girls hitting up against anybody out there. Fielding will be fairly strong, not as strong as we would have been if we had all the players, but the girls we have out there are going to give their all. And so I think we'll compete. It'll come down to the pitching and how much pitching depth we're able to develop.
So we'll see how things develop for this team. It's been a rough beginning to the season so far, to be sure, with the loss of key players and the bad weather causing several game cancellations. But if anybody can produce a positive season for MC softball, it's Mike Smigocki. He has over 20 years of experience coaching in Montgomery County. And next Raptor Report will bring you up to date on how things are going on the softball diamond. And now let's turn to track and field, another completely revitalized MC program. Head coach Jamal Schools and his assistant Tom Payne have completely redrawn the track landscape here, as they've turned this program into a D3 powerhouse. Last season, MC athletes qualified for over 22 events at the National Championship meet, resulting in 13 top 10 national finishes overall and 4 in the top 5. But it's a new year and a new season, which has unfortunately gotten off to a slow start thanks to Old Man Winter. 3 meets on their schedule were canceled because of snow and cold, and the weather has affected their ability to practice full out as well. This time last season, they'd already competed in several meets, and I talked with Raptors head coach Jamal Schools about the effect the slow start has had on the team.
We haven't really had tested yet with the long days of track meets and, being able to fulfill the test of, consistent training and consistent pounding with different events throughout the whole day, being able to run one event and, an hour later run another event, being able to recover properly, hydrate your system and that type of thing.
Once they get going, Coach Schools and his assistant Tom Payne expect the team to be well represented at nationals.
We have a good sophomore core that has returned from either last year's team or has redshirted last year from the prior year before that, which combines for our 4x4 relay team, which should compete for nationals this year. Last year they did pretty good, and we medaled last year. I think it was top 8, so they should compete. Hopefully top 3 this year. Individually, we have not to mention too many individuals, but 400 hurdles, 800-meter dash, 400-meter dash, and possibly a 15-meter run as well. For the women's side, nationally ranked, we have a few women as well, a few sprinters, primarily the 100 and 200-meter sprints. We actually have a high jumper that should be trying to compete this year.
And the Raptors finally got to compete in their first meet at Goucher, and despite the constant wind and rain, they came in a strong second in a 10-school field that included several four-year schools. The team MVP for the meet was Thomas McIntyre, who won the 1500, the 800, and was on the winning 4x400 relay team. And 10 MC athletes posted results that qualify them for the national championships in May. So once they finally got a chance to compete, this team showed it has a ton of promise. Up next, Montgomery College has lost an athletics giant. We'll be right back with a tribute to one of the all-time great MC sports figures. Welcome back. It's with great sadness that I bring you our next story. Montgomery College lost a true athletic giant recently when former athletic director, head men's soccer coach, and physical education professor Tom Bichy passed away. Tom, or Coach as just about everybody called him, was truly one of the founding fathers of athletics here at MC. He spent 37 years of his life teaching, coaching, and nurturing young MC student athletes. Tom was a professor at MC from 1968 to 2005. He was also MC's Rockville campus athletic director for 24 years. But it's as a soccer coach where he perhaps left his most indelible mark. And the strange thing is, he never dreamed he'd become one. A three-sport star growing up in Frederick, Tom went to the University of Maryland, where he starred for the baseball team and served as team captain. In his senior year, he led the Terps to the ACC championship. After receiving his master's degree at Maryland, Tom came to MC looking for a coaching or teaching job. He started as a fill-in for the injured baseball coach Ray Fox, but was soon offered a full-time position teaching physical education, and was eventually named the full-time assistant baseball coach. But then MC athletic director Lou Chacos surprised Tom. When I interviewed Tom a few years ago about his MC career, he recalled that meeting with his AD.
Lou Chacos liked what I was doing, and at that time the Montgomery College was starting to, the campus, the Rockville campus was starting to enlarge with more students, and they had 4 job opportunities at that time. And I got one of them as a physical education instructor. He said I could be assistant baseball coach because that's what I wanted to do, was coach baseball. I said, that's great. Teach in the physical education department, activity classes, and fine. And he says, and by the way, you're going to be the head soccer coach. And I went, wow. I said, I don't know a great deal about soccer. he said, well, the man had a vision that soccer was going to boom. This was in 1968. There was like, I think, 4 high schools in Montgomery County at that time were playing soccer. And now there's like 25 or 27 high schools, and they're all playing soccer with JV teams. So I started that, built up the soccer program year after year, got more and more involved with soccer. Spent 37 years coaching soccer.
Coach put his legendary work ethic into gear and literally taught himself the game through trial and error, by going to countless coaching clinics, and by attending coaching school. Ultimately, he received a national coaching license, and I think it's fair to say that he learned the game pretty well. In 1982, he became MC's Rockville campus athletic director, and one of his first hires was for head football coach. He chose Phil Martin, and that decision began a close relationship that endured for decades.
We wouldn't have gotten to where we did in terms of national recognition without Tom Bichy. And I don't know how anybody could ever forget what he has done for this program and this school.
I always look forward to going to work. I've always done that. I knew going to work, I was going to be doing something. I was going to be contributing to student success.
There were so many success stories in Tom's long career at MC. He helped countless students and athletes find the right path. But perhaps one stands above the rest, and that's MC Athletic Hall of Famer and current Yale University women's head soccer coach, Rudy Meredith. Meredith was on the 1988 MC team that came ever so close to winning the national championship. But it was off the field where Tom made the biggest impact on Rudy Meredith's life.
I mean, I failed all my classes here my first year. And so you think this would be someone who would just give up on me. I'm sorry, you're just not. He pushed me in the right direction and say, listen, I'm not giving up on you. And I just can't thank him enough for what that meant to me, because it changed my life. I mean, it definitely changed my life, and it made me give me opportunity to say that, you know, I really want to coach because I want to kind of be like him. You know, I want my players to respect me as much as I respect him as a coach, and I kind of always kept that in the back of my mind when I coach. And because of that, that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to coach and why I'm coaching today, is because of Tom Bichy.
Tom Bichy devoted his life and career to Montgomery College and the thousands of students he taught, coached, and mentored. What a career he put together. 37 years as head soccer coach, 37 years as a professor, and 24 years as Montgomery College Rockville athletic director. 471 career wins as head soccer coach. When he retired, that placed him first on the all-time NJCAA list of soccer coaches. And now, fully 10 years later, he's still third all-time. He was named National NJCAA Soccer Coach of the Year in 1997. He was inducted into the Frederick County Athletic Hall of Fame in 1998. And he was inducted into the NJCAA Region 20 Hall of Fame in 2002. And in 2005, Tom was named to the NJCAA National Soccer Hall of Fame. When he retired, the Montgomery College Board of Trustees named him Professor Emeritus. They awarded him with the Silver Medallion and created a scholarship in his name. An incredible career by a wonderful man, a true legend at Montgomery College. And we'd like to again send our deepest sympathies to Tom's wife Elaine, his children, and his grandchildren. Tom Bichy will be sorely missed. Welcome back to the Raptor Report. And before we say goodbye, I want to remind you that we have a bunch of new ways to stay up to date on MC sports. First, at the new and improved montgomerycollege.edu/Raptors, You'll find the rosters for all MC teams, team and individual photos, video highlights, game schedules, and results, contact information for each coach, and much more. Another great way to stay on top of what's happening with the Raptors is the new MC Raptors Facebook page at facebook.com/theraptorsmc. Like the Raptors on their new Facebook page to get updates on everything that's happening. Follow MC Athletics on Twitter at twitter.com/MC_Raptors. It's an instantaneous way to keep in touch with MC Sports. And follow the Raptors on Instagram at instagram.com/MC_Raptors. And last but not least, check out the new MC Raptors YouTube channel at youtube.com/TheRaptorsMC. There you'll find this show and past episodes of the Raptor Report, plus archived games, game highlights, and more. Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of the Raptor Report. But spring sports are underway, so join us next time for highlights from baseball, softball, and track and field. Thanks so much for watching the Raptor Report.